What we have here is a going to be a push to start a unit on the Abarth X1. So due to some problems and the computer and the anti-theft system, it's better to go to a keyless type of push to start. Possibly if I would have listened to Bob Martin in the beginning and said to him, hey, that's what we should do, forget about this key stuff, it would have saved me a lot of grief and aggravation, which presented problems along the way, which now have been resolved. So just in when I'm going to do this, first off, I've got my set of Fiat drawings for the Abarth engine, and my block diagram of how I'm going to go about doing it, and then I've got a relay kind of connection diagram here, which it's kind of rough, and here are the relays that I'm going to do with it. It's a master switching relay, a latching relay, and a time delay relay. So once I get this incorporated into the car, you'll see how it works. Currently it's October 2016, and I believe all the engine problems with this transplant have been sorted out. Driveline problems, all that has now been resolved. We'll go over a little bit, a couple of things here. If anybody was following here, I was having some issues with what I'm going to call heat soak and locking the engine out, and trying to figure out what it was the biggest problem. Not knowing where to go and no one to talk to, you're left to your own devices to come to a resolution. From the initial install, because I was trying to figure out what the issue was, I kept getting a diagnostic trouble code, DTC, for bad ignition coils. So much so to the point where I went and relocated the coils, and well, they're pretty simple now. They come apart, the coils, and without too much difficulty, you can pull the spark plugs out. So now I've just got an extension here, and I've remote mounted the coils. That was an effort to stop the ignition coil DTC from appearing. And the coils were relocated in this location. And nice simple job. It took a little bit of thought, but I like it, and I'm probably going to keep it that way, even though I think I can put them back. In an effort also to control heat, because it only seemed to give me the problem when the car was warm. The intercooler was insulated along with the plenum, and it too lowered engine temperatures. The turbocharger also has a blanket over it, and that's way down in here, and I don't know if we can see it. There's more blanketing around in here, just trying to keep the heat, and a shield here and trying to force it up. All of this was to no avail. And the culprit was, and I don't have it installed anymore, but I'll put a picture here. So the culprit was the tack adapter, which took the ground pulse from all the coils through the tack adapter out, and it was throwing out a DTC, which was causing the ECU to think that there was a bad coil, and it would start dropping the coils off, which eventually got to the point where you could only get the engine to run on one cylinder, and of course that gets to be difficult and leaves you stranded. So by removing that and going to a different style tack adapter, one that's not in series but rather the one that's just inductive, the Marshall gauge works very well, and tack indication is no longer a problem. So as I continued on the troubleshooting process, one of the issues that came up was that the engine eventually would just not run, or would run if I reset the DTCs on it with my scan tool, and at that time crank the engine and it would start and run for approximately 30 seconds and it would shut down. That led us into the direction that we thought maybe it had something to do with the security system and the anti-theft, and we tried to reprogram the keys for it, and we came into a problem with that because I extended the wires on the SKM, the skim antenna, which caused me now to make some more changes. So here's what we ended up doing. Control modules are in this cabinet in the back, and what you can see here is that's the Fiat key, the Abarth key with a Abarth logo on there. You can see that. And what I've ended up doing now is I made this little holder here, and we slip that in there like that. Pretty simple. And now we'll go back into the car. And instead of having the key in this location, now we have is a push to start button. Now, in the design of it, if we just hit it the once, it energizes all your control console and the old X1 entity along with the Abarth entity. And if we want to, we can just hit that again and it shuts it off. And now if we hold it down, and the engine cranks, and there we go. Nice. Got that throaty sound to it. I like it. So I should have listened to Bob Martin in the beginning, but I didn't, and that would have stopped that issue from happening. We hit it again, and the engine stops. So basically, the car runs really good. Well, I'm going to get some footage on here once I get my camera mounted up, and we'll go down the road. The intercooler gauge here, what I've noticed now, on a day that's about 90 degrees, 85, 90, we can get into a heat soak problem, and when it gets up to that 170, that's the air temperature going into the engine automatically ramps itself down. But as long as the days are 85 degrees and less, you'll see that come up maybe 160, and it'll drop back down. On a 70 degree day, 75 degree day, that needle doesn't even move. And this is a water to air intercooler. So if I was in a warmer climate, I would put a little bit more rad in there for that small intercooler water circuit, and that would probably solve the problem. But where we are here, a 90 degree day is very rare, and it depends how hard you're pushing the car. Certainly if you're on a race circuit, yeah, you're going to want to do a little bit more, but you're going to have the car stripped out and different anyway. So looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. And we'll do some road testing here, and you'll get to see the car as it runs it and what the gauges are all doing. Okay, here we are for a test drive. I don't have the sport button on, and we'll just start out here. Since I've connected the wheel sensors, what I've noticed is that the ECU is starting to learn again. The ECU in the car that was wrecked was disconnected for about 3 years. And when I put the car together without the wheel sensors, the boost will go up considerably high, 22 to 24 pounds per square inch. And the car has a lot more get up and go. Possibly I'll get one of those open flash tablets and see if I can change that a little bit later on. That's in the works. We'll see where my money is and what I've got on the go. So that was starting out without the sport button. Okay, camera fell down. The problem is that of course Fiat X1 at the back's got those trace wires for the defroster, and the camera dropped off in the last video. So I'm stopped. I've got the sport mode engaged, and what I'm going to do is start out again, and we'll see the difference how it sounds. Here we go. reluctor that I put on the front wheel, and it seems to be accurate with what the GPS is saying. It's just a matter of how quickly the GPS can keep up with the change of position. Around here and do a U-turn. We'll start that one more time. Hopefully the camera doesn't fall off. Look at the second marks on the clock when I put it up on YouTube, and we can look at the speedometer when and how long it takes to get up to 50 or 60 miles an hour. Overall, I mean, the car runs neat. The sound of the turbocharger and the blow-off valve, well, it's literally less than a foot away from where the camera's mounted, so you're going to hear that noise. You hear it in the car. Because I went with a water-cooled intercooler, and the plenum length is so much shorter, there's a bleed line, a 3/8 bleed line that goes from the high side plenum over to the intake where the air cleaner is. I think it's there just to kind of cushion the reaction between the turbocharger with it coming on and off of the boost relatively quickly. Some guys said, "Oh, well, you can plug that up," but I'm just a little afraid to do that. I'm afraid it's going to have some kind of a negative effect on it. Seeing that the entire pressurized plenum is a lot shorter than the stock one is.